Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Witchcrafter Yugioh deck profile for post-Magnificent Mavens. We got the new fusion monster in the Magnificent Mavens booster set for the Witchcrafter deck, a deck that focuses on recycling your different Witchcrafter spells back to your hand, gaining additional card effects for those spells in our hand, and the new Vice Madam always adds power because we have this awesome, easy to go into fusion monster with our new Confusion Confession spell, which acts as a Witchcrafter spell, being able to add it back to our hand from the graveyard to keep the fusion plays going. I'm really happy with the new support we got from Magnificent Mavens. It just adds to so much more fun that we can do with the Witchcrafter deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Witchcrafter monsters, I am running 3 Witchcrafters Schematia with this card, or Schematics, I believe is what the name is meant to go off of. During the main phase quick effect, you can tribute this card and then discard 1 spell to special summon 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck, except for Schemata, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to send 1 Witchcrafter card from your deck to the graveyard, except for this card. And you can only use each effect of Witchcrafter Schemata once per turn. So this can set up your new go-to spell, the Confusion Confession, in the graveyard to then, on the end phase, add it back to your hand and have a fusion play ready to go the following turn. And just being able to special summon out some of our big go-to one-of boss monsters like Madame Vare much more quickly onto the field using this card. I also run 3 Witchcrafter Janai with this card. During the main phase quick effect, you can tribute this card and discard 1 spell to special summon 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck, except for Witchcrafter Janai. And then also you can banish this card and 1 Witchcrafter spell from your graveyard. This effect becomes that spell's effect, and when this card is activated, you can only use each effect of Witchcrafter Janai once per turn. So if you have the fusion spell in your graveyard, being able to banish it in Janai can give you your fusion play as long as you have the fusion monsters on the field for you to use. For some lower numbers for the Witchcrafters, I also run 2 Witchcrafter Pator. During the main phase quick effect, you can tribute this card and discard 1 spell to special summon 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck, except for Pator, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to draw 1 card, then send 1 Witchcrafter card from your hand to the graveyard, or if you have none, banish your entire hand, which you'll just be able to then add the spell back to your hand if you hadn't already activated a card with the same name from your hand that turn anyway. But Pator gives you more draw and setup for your graveyard, being able to have all those many different spells to use, because then you also have the options for your Vice Madam to then recycle and use those cards also. For some of the other one-ofs for the Witchcrafter monsters, I run 1 Madame Vare, more of the boss monster for all the different spells you will have in your hand, being able to stop a card effect on the field, and also just have this card gain more and more attack for how many different named spells you have in your hand. 1 Hane for destruction plays on the field by being able to discard a spell and target a face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it, and 1 Pottery for the, once again, special summon and banishing it from the graveyard to target a Witchcrafter card in your graveyard and adding it back into your hand. For more of the generic spellcaster support that I run, I also run 2 Magician Souls. This can help just by discarding it and setting up these spell traps in your graveyard by sending up to 2 spell traps from your hand interfield to the graveyard to draw that many cards. And then if this card is in your hand, you can send 1 level 6 or higher spellcaster monster from your deck to the graveyard, then activate 1 of these effects to special summon this card, or send this card to the graveyard and special summon a Dark Magician. But that's not, anything we're running in the deck, so it's mostly just to be used to send our level 6 or higher to the graveyard and then summon it out, and also be able to draw cards by setting also up the many different Witchcrafter spells in our hand to the graveyard to draw into other ones, and then just add those ones back into our hand. And I also run 2 Effect Veiler just for the additional hand trap option in the deck. If you want to run a 3rd Magician Souls, you can just take out the Effect Veiler, and then for the last pot, put in a 2nd copy of Pottery. Moving on now to the spells, I am running 3 of the new Witchcrafters Confusion Confession. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your X deck using monsters from your hand or field as material, including a Witchcrafter monster. And during your end phase, if you control a Witchcrafter monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. You can only use 1 Witchcrafter Confusion Confession effect per turn, only once that turn. So you can either use the fusion play or the add back to your hand play, which if you set it up in the graveyard, if you don't have the fusion play to go to with cards like Magician Soul, you can then just add it back to your hand and do the fusion play the following turn. For some of the other 3 ofs, I also run 3 Witchcrafter's Creation. One of the best spells for the deck, you add 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck to your hand, and during your end phase, if you control Witchcrafter monster, it lets you add it back. So it's just a searcher, and then you have a recycle of, if you didn't use the effect that turn, to add it back to your hand, and then have another search the following turn, being able to add very important cards like Schematia or Janai to your hand that much more quickly. And I also run 3 Witchcrafter Holiday for more of the special summon option. You target a Witchcrafter in your graveyard, special summon it, and then also having the add back effect, but you can only activate 1 Witchcrafter Holiday effect per turn. So if you set up Madame Vare or Hain in your graveyard with cards like Magician's Soul, you can special summon them back onto the field much more easily with cards like Witchcrafter Holiday. And I also, for the one-ofs, for the Witchcrafter spells, 1 collaboration for more of the targeting a Witchcrafter monster you control, and it can make a second attack during each battle phase, and when it attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell or traps. 1 Witchcrafter draping. You target spell or traps your opponent controls up to the number of Witchcrafter monsters you control, return them to the hand, and 1 Witchcrafter by street. The first time each Witchcrafter monster you control will be destroyed by battle each turn or card effect, it is not. And then if a Witchcrafter monster you control would discard to activate an effect, you can send this card from the field to the graveyard instead. And 1 Witchcrafter Unveiling, being able to special summon 1 from your hand, and then if your opponent cannot activate card effects in response to this activation. So you have all these to also add back aside from By Street to your hand. With the send effects still being usable, you have them all as a recycle option to be added back into your hand if you didn't use their first effect. And that just helps because then once again we have discard plays with cards like Magician's Souls, or even just the banish setup with Janai being able to activate the same effect that you already didn't use that turn. For some of the other spells that help with the plays in the deck, I'm running 3 Magician's Restage. This card was reprinted in the Magnificent Maven set. You can target 1 level 3 or lower spellcaster monster in your graveyard, special summon it. This effect can only be used once while this card is face up on the field, and if it's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Magician continuous spell from your deck to your hand, except for Magician's Restage. So you have the special summon play with Restage, but then you also have the option to send up to 2 spell or traps from your hand or field, which Magician's Soul specifies, to use this card to send it, and then giving you that play. And then if it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Magician continuous spell from your deck to your hand, which we are additionally running in the deck, which is 1 Magician's left hand and 1 Magician's right hand, being able to have a spell and trap negation if you have this card on the field the first time that your opponent would activate a spell or a trap with each one respectively. And while you have to control a spellcaster monster to do so. But it's great because it is searchable off of the Restage, so very useful to run the 2 together, having search options with this card being a monster reborn on the field for your lower level Witchcrafter monsters. For more generic spellcaster support, I also run 2 Secret Village of the Spellcaster, so we just have a way to shut down our opponent's spells when they try to use them on the field. And for some of the one-ofs for the spells, 1 Instant Fusion and 1 Spellbook of Judgment. We don't have any spellbooks in the deck, but still being able to, during the end phase was turn activate, you can search spellbook cards and then special summon a spellcaster monster up to the number of spells you activated. So even if you just activate 1 Spellbook of Judgment, will give you at least a special summon of a Witchcrafter onto the field, which can even just be your Witchcrafter Janai. If you didn't want to run Spellbook of Judgment or you don't have this card, you can always just put in Monster Reborn instead. With the last lineup in the main deck is our Trap, which is just 3 infinite impermanents. If you do go second against your opponent, it's just a good option to have along with Effect Veiler to stop any of their on-field monster effects. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 3 copies of Witchcrafter Vice Madam. You need 1 Witchcrafter monster and 1 Spellcaster monster. Easily done with this deck since the entire main deck is Spellcasters. When a spell, card, or effect, or a non-fusion Spellcaster effect is activated, a quick effect, you can activate one of these effects. Then you can only use each of the following of Witchcrafter Vice Madam once per turn. You can destroy 1 card on the field, or special summon 1 level 6 or lower Witchcrafter from your hand or deck, or add 1 Witchcrafter spell or trap from your graveyard to your hand. So you have recycle power with this card, destruction power, and special summon power. And it's a very easy fusion monster to summon out with our new go-to fusion card, and being able to utilize all the many different monsters we have in the deck. Definitely a 3 of, because you can easily go into this card multiple times, whether you recycle the fusion spell back to your hand or just open up multiples of it. I also run the 1 Millennium Eyes Restrict, so we have the target for our instant fusion also being another spellcaster that can take our opponent's monster, and also the 1 Link Karibo for the Janai or the Millennium Eyes Restrict, 1 Magistus Moon Maiden for the additional Link play to set up, 1 Clara and Rushka, 1 Cross Sheep, and 1 Lena the Light Charmer, along with 1 Barricade Board Blocker and 1 Nightmare Phoenix for the Link 1s and 2s. For the Link 3s, 1 Nightmare Unicorn and 1 Celine, Queen of the Master Magicians for more spell setup and special summon for the counters we get on this card. And also 1 Access Code Talker and 1 Apollosa, Bow of the Goddess, for some of the Link 4 boss monsters. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, like I said, the setup with your Witchcrafter cards is very important for that play, but if you have Magician Souls, you can easily use more of the Send spell setup. If you have 2 additional Witchcrafter spells, that can give you 2 additional draws, setting those up in the graveyard when this card's already on the field. Being able to also send up to 2, and also with this card, you can activate one of these effects, special summoning it from the hand, by sending 1 level 6 or higher spellcaster from your deck to the graveyard. So with this, you can send Madame there, special summoning your souls onto the field. Then sending the 2 spells to get 2 additional draws, could potentially draw into the fusion spell or 1 other card, which could be a search. And since Magician Souls was a special summon, you can normal summon out that other Witchcrafter monster and then have that additional field effect along with the other spell you may have opened up thanks to the search off Magician Souls, giving you the discard to then go into the special summon of another Witchcrafter monster from your deck onto the field. And then if you have the fusion spell in your hand, you can activate it, going for the additional play of these cards and getting out your boss go-to fusion monster. The best part about it is then you have the graveyard play for what you didn't activate this turn to then add these cards back into your hand, giving you more spell support along with those cards to use with your Vice Madam to then either special summon an additional Witchcrafter monster onto the field, destroying an opponent's card, or re-adding back another Witchcrafter spell from your graveyard to your hand, speeding along the process for the recycle, because then you can just activate that card again, getting out an additional monster. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. It's a really awesome deck. Like I said, Fusion always adds so much power to whatever deck when they finally get their first Fusion monster, and it was so awesome that Witchcrafters finally got one as well. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.